Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Netta, for being here with me. I truly, truly am just so delighted that you reached out and wanted to do this. I am on a mission to increase awareness and decrease stigma and shame around sugar addiction, food addiction, eating disorders, disordered eating, whatever it might be in general. And I know you have a story about letting go of some things. And so I'll stop talking and I want to turn the mic over to you. What was it like before you went sugar-free? Are you also flour-free? Is there anything else that you abstain from? Can you just kind of share your story?
Sure, yes. Well, just to answer, first of all, thank you for having me here. Just to answer quickly, yes, I'm sugar-free, flour-free, basically grain-free. I don't even eat whole grains, and sweetener-free. And just that's 3 ways of feeling free. What was my life like before? So I stopped eating sugar, grains and sweeteners in July 2015. So it's like 7.5 years, coming on to 8 years soon. And what was life like before? I considered that I was normal. And it's like my definition of normal has since changed. But I didn't know that I had a definition of normal at the time. But I mean, I was like everyone else. I would eat dessert after a meal, like it was a given, right? And I would honestly probably eat dessert for breakfast, lunch and dinner actually, but I wasn't aware of it, plus snacks and whatnot. And I was my identity was wrapped up in my love for chocolate and dessert. So people would, if they invited me over, they would make like an extra dessert just for Netta. And like if they wanted to give me a present or birthday or whatever, it was chocolate. It was a sure win. So it was like this part of my identity that I guess, again, that I considered completely normal. Since I've been in the no sugar world, and since I've, talked with you and others in the sugar addiction world, I realized that my behavior when I was still eating sugar was not an addictive type of behavior. I think I would consider myself more of a harmful user back then than a full-blown addict, because I never exhibited any kinds of like binging behaviors or anything like that. And I didn't even know they existed, these types of behaviors. So that's saying something, but not a day went by without me eating some sort of form of sugar, flour. I've never been a huge fan of sweeteners. I don't drink soda, maybe because of my British background, although that means pretty much nothing. But there's plenty of British people who drink soda, but I didn't. I think it was the way I was brought up, just to drink water and coffee and tea. So yeah. So the sweeteners were not a thing for me. But yeah, so health-wise, I can tell you that my life was okay. What I did not have that most people have was a weight problem. I didn't have a weight problem like ever. I was up and down, like a bit of a yo-yo in my weight for sure, but never overweight, certainly not obese. I had a baby later in life because we suffered with infertility problems. So I was almost 38 by the time I had our daughter, and I did put on some pounds at that time, and I wasn't comfortable and I didn't feel beautiful with those extra pounds. But again, I was going from slim to less slim. I had health issues like infertility issues, unexplained. I had all sorts of tests, and so did my husband. We ended up having IVF, and that worked. Yes, it was worth it. I had awful digestive problems, very, very slow digestion. If I had a tummy ache, my husband would ask, well, what did you eat like 3 days ago? That was how long things took. And by July 2015, I was like going to the bathroom like once a week. It's pretty toxic for your body. Lots of bloating, lots of discomfort, lots of pain, lots of little pills to try and get things moving, lots of products with extra fiber that completely ruined my digestive system, unfortunately. Did not help my constipation, that type of processed fiber at all, on the contrary. What else? I had frequent headaches, frequent skin breakouts. I had I was only in my 40s and I would be getting up in the morning and having creaky joints, achy joints that since I realized you shouldn't be having, not just in your 40s, ever, so all kinds of things like that. And then in my late 20s and 30s, I had a lot of problems with anxiety. I was actually clinically depressed in my late 20s. So a lot of problems with PMS, my moods, very up and down. And so because I wasn't overweight, I didn't look like I had any health problems, and it wasn't like a reason to stop eating sugar. It wasn't my weight. But, health is not just about weight. And there's lots of invisible health issues that I had that were pretty much cancelled out by the fact that I stopped eating sugar.
So that was before. So then what was kind of like the aha, or what even prompted you to be like, I'm going to remove these things?
Yeah, no, that's not how it did. That's not how it went down. I had no aha, and I did not want to give up chocolate and sugar. I fought it every single step of the way. And actually it was like a lot of people, it's like, you got to do something. But the actual thing that you have to do is I'll do anything except for that one thing, because it was just, I just couldn't imagine my life without all my comfort foods. And the only thing that changed my mindset for me was that I tried everything. My body had backed me into a corner. I could not carry on suffering with my digestion and everything else the way that I was living. And my body had backed me into a corner. And actually my brother was working with a nutritional therapist in his business, and he put me in touch with her. She was in the States, and we Skyped in those days. In 2015, Skype was ooh, high-tech stuff. And we Skyped together. She was in the States, and she suggested that, amongst other things, that I stop for just 2 weeks sugar, flour, sweeteners. And I said, no, are you crazy? Why would I do something like this? My problem has nothing to do with sugar, and the only thing that's making me feel better are my comfort foods. Don't take them away. And so it was not a aha moment. It was a no way moment, and basically I rejected her suggestion. And then I just carried on as before. And it was only when I realized that nothing was changing, because I wasn't changing, that I thought, I got over myself. And I thought, I've got to give it a try. I got to give it a try, because nothing else is working. Nothing is changing. Get over yourself, Netta, and stop fighting this. Look, what have you got to lose? And I sort of credit at least my open-mindedness finally, eventually, to give it a go, give it a try. And that's what I did, because I met with her in the spring, and it took all through the summer for me to come to the obvious conclusion that something I had to change. Not just what I was eating, but how I saw my health and my well-being. And when I did that, and as I say, when I got over my own resistance, then I said, okay. And that was the beginning of my life after sugar, that I call it now. But it was that mindset shift, which is a small one, but a powerful one, from going from no, to, okay, I'll try.
Right. And it was, okay, I'll try. It wasn't like, okay, I'm all in.
Oh, no, it was, listen, 2 weeks. You said 2 weeks. I'm in. I'm all in for 2 weeks. But the cookies are staying in the cupboard, and the ice cream is in the freezer, and the chocolate bars are there for 14 days time, I am having a party after that.
And then what happened at 14 days? Like, why did you not have the party? Or did you have the party?
I didn't have the party. I had a different type of party, and I'm still on that party now. But it's the thing with those 2 weeks, it was the strangest thing. The first few days, she gave me a list of things to buy at the grocery store, which basically boils down to real whole foods that are not packaged and don't have lists of ingredients, including sugar and flour. But apart from it feeling weird to like start the day with breakfast that's like savory, eggs and cucumbers, it's like, who eats that kind of breakfast, right? I've since met millions of other people who actually do. But I didn't know that at the time. It's like, if you don't eat toast or cereal or pastries, what else is there? That's the mindset I was in. But around day 4, I remember I said to my husband, I'm just going to go lie down for a little nap, which I never have to nap. Anyway, it lasted for 2 days, this nap, because I was just out for the count. My body I'd since learned, couldn't handle this sort of change in fuel, as it were. I wasn't getting the glucose from all those, processed carby foods. And my body didn't know what to do with the change in diet, I guess. But after those 2 days of like being out for the count and kind of feeling like angry at my body, angry at the whole process, depressed, and all these other feelings that came up for me, plus this splitting headache, I had enough energy left over to read up about like sugar detox. I didn't even know was a thing. I was lucky. I didn't know anything. And it probably saved me from a lot of suffering, because I just threw myself into it. And then, I read up about it. I had read a bit before about grains and stuff like that. The second week, I remember getting up one morning and thinking, I can move and it doesn't hurt. And thinking, I think my pants are a bit looser. Looking down, I still have this little spare tire, and thinking, it feels like it's melting away, this like extra belly that I had. And I thought, I kind of feel like get up and go, kind of energetic, And this lasted the whole of the second week. And also, I felt like my taste was starting to change. And although like in the evenings in my other life, I used to, when my kid was in bed, I used to sneak cookies, and not just 1 or 2, right? And so this type of habit that I used to have after dinner was kind of fill up the time after dinner. And now I wasn't doing that for those 2 weeks. I didn't know what to do with myself. I didn't so much miss the cookies, because I knew they were waiting for me. I missed what do I do if I'm not sneaking cookies at night, right? So that was weird. And it was like, well, what do I do when I'm not finishing a meal with a dessert? It was just weird, It was like doing something that I didn't even think was doable. Right. So that was the strangest thing. And for my like for cravings and stuff, as I said, because in the back of my mind, I knew all of the sugary foods were waiting for me. I didn't suffer that much. And because actually it was suggested to me to cut out all sweet tasting foods, even fruit, for those 2 weeks. And I wasn't too scared of getting scurvy in 2 weeks. And so it was like a shock to my body not to eat any type of sweet tastes. But in the long run, it was the best thing I ever did for my body and my taste buds and my brain, because my body got used to less and less sweetness in just 2 weeks. And by the end of that, the nutritional therapist said to me, you can start bringing in, some grains, some fruit. And I was like, no, again, no, I'm feeling great. I'm just going to carry on another week if that's okay. And I did. Yeah. And then another week and another week. And it's been 7.5 years. I haven't looked back because I feel
So
so great.
at what point did you stop having that thought of like, I'm going to go another week? I'm going to like, did you recognize like pretty soon it just was what you were doing and you were never going back to that old lifestyle? Or yeah, can you
Um,
talk a bit about that shift?
yeah, I have to say that I didn't really see things in terms of never, always, that kind of black and white outlook on things. And in a certain way, I still see it all as an experiment. Like, life in general is an experiment. We never know what's coming next. And so I like adventures and we like traveling. And so I kind of saw it as an adventure. Let's just see how far I can take this, you know? And sometimes I joke now that, people say, well, can you not have sugar? You can't have it. And I'm like, oh, I can have it. You try and stop me. Except you don't need to try to stop me because I'm the one in charge. I'm the one, deciding. And because my taste buds got so used to less and less sweetness over time, in the end, when I did taste something sweet, and it wasn't necessarily sugar, maybe it was, some sweet fruit or something, dried fruit. I was like, ugh, it doesn't even taste good anymore. And if something doesn't taste good to you, you're not hankering after it. What my brain hankered after was the sweet memories of those comfort foods. And so what my challenge became was not necessarily how can I replace sugar with other sweet tastes? It was how can I replace those sweet memories with those types of sugary and starchy foods with other sweet memories that are sweet for their own sake and not because they've got refined sugar and flour in them.
So what did you do? Like, what did you just start experimenting with that? Was there like, did you have like a hobby that you just like threw yourself into? How did you do that work?
Yeah, one of the things that I did was I posted, often on Facebook, on my Netta Facebook wall, to let my friends know what I was doing. And there's a side of me that's slightly rebellious. I don't know if you've noticed. Because you and I understand each other's type of rebelliousness. I don't have the hair color, but I have other stuff going on. And so I had fun with it. I had fun posting and telling other people and being a little bit facetious about my kind of change in personality, as it were, and kind of challenging others' perceptions of me and my own perceptions of myself and my own identity, just to see how far I could take it. So the Netta that used to eat the desserts and and the chocolate and everything else was finding other ways to make meals and to enjoy my food and to enjoy my life in ways where I don't need sugar or flour anymore. And so it's like I had fun with it and I didn't suffer enormously with the lack of comfort foods because I wasn't as like a bona fide addict to begin with. I think that also helped because sugar or desserts were not filling in some kind of trauma or deep-seated need in me. They were enjoyable to me. They were certainly sources of comfort and reward for me. I don't deny that. But I was also not addicted enough so that I had this kind of capacity to step back and say, and pinpoint, one time I was driving home. I'm a teacher. I teach English as a second language in Quebec, in French-speaking Quebec. And one time I was driving home at the end of the first day of the semester, and I remember thinking, and this was that summer, like a couple of months after I'd stopped eating sugar, and I remember thinking, I gave a good first class today. I deserve chocolate. And I remember sitting at the red light thinking, you deserve good stuff, all right, Netta, but it doesn't have to be chocolate. And that was a huge turning point for me.
Wow. That's phenomenal to like have that first thought and then go, wait a minute, correction. You absolutely deserve good things, but it doesn't need to come in that format.
Yeah,
Oh, so neat. So neat. So you had mentioned that you did some reading, maybe not necessarily prior to going no sugar, no grains,
a
any of
little
that,
bit.
but okay, can you kind of like what books or what reading, what resources were kind of helpful to you?
Yeah. Okay. So before I said yes, reluctantly, to the whole no sugar thing, I read, I think it was Grain Brain or some such book, right? William Davis, is it? And it blew my mind. I was like, but wait a minute, we've been told forever, that bread is a staple, that you've got to have a certain sort of portion of grains and whatnot on starches on your plate. And it was like my first experience, my first foray into another type of dialogue of, wait a minute, this isn't necessarily how it is or how we are supposed to eat. And that also spoke to my slightly rebellious nature, where I was like, have I been duped? Have I been manipulated? I'm not taking this lying down. And it kind of snowballed after that, because once I went to the grocery store with a list of real foods that don't contain sugar and flour and sweeteners, then I became so much more aware of all the other, like 90% of products that are in the grocery stores that are all packaged, that are all marketed. And I thought, I'm being manipulated by the food industry, let alone the diet industry, to think that these products are actually food. And that really made me feel indignant. And I wanted to know more about it. A friend of mine, when I was posting on my Facebook wall, said, "Oh, right, so you're keto now." And I'm like, "And what now?" I never heard of the word. Didn't know what she was talking about. And then I read up about it. She said, "Oh, you should read Keto Clarity or some such book." So I read it because I'm a bit of a bookworm, teacher. And then I was like, oh, okay, this is like flies in the face of everything I'd ever been in contact with. And I grew up in the 80s and 90s, low fat forever, right? But I'm not keto, I'm netta, you know. I did a whole podcast episode called "Are You Keto?" No, I'm netta. I will not, my identity is mine, and nobody else has the right to tell me who I am. So maybe it's similar how I eat to the keto, but I mean, I think keto is like, and I'm not dissing keto here, I'm just saying the distinction between how I identify myself and keto is, there's certain like percentages that you need to respect for it to be considered keto, and I'm not respecting anything. And it's like, if you eat a carrot, all of a sudden you're like shamed for this. I'm not buying into that.
Yes.
I joined a whole bunch of keto groups and I ran away as fast as I could.
Yeah, I find the same thing, right? Where there's dogma and zealotry. So, if you like want
Mm.
to like maybe be more meat forward and kind of trend toward the carnivore side of things, but oh my gosh, you eat a salad at dinner, that's not carnivore. Or, like you said, the keto thing. And again, not to bash those ways of eating. If that works for you, that works for you. But to hold so tightly to a label, you
Yeah.
actually can paint yourself into a corner. And and I've found with my clients, like, that actually creates more shame and guilt and secrecy and isolation, because I've got, when people are like, but I just really wanted that salad with dinner, and so I had the salad, and then I'm having guilt and shame, and I'm like, over a salad?
Yeah.
What has happened here? We have gone so far the other way that we're right back to where we started, right? It's just 180 degree,
Yeah.
two sides, same coin.
Yes, totally.
Yes.
And it fits a certain personality type, I found, to have rules and to have things like that. And that's fine. It just doesn't fit me. So there's nothing wrong with it per se. It just doesn't suit me, you know. And I don't like being told what to do. I don't know if you realize that, but yeah, I don't like being told what to do, even if it's for my own good, more fool me. So yeah, following any kinds of rules and regulations, it just doesn't work for me. And as I said at the beginning, I was even, it was sort of, well, the nutritional therapist said to me, you can reintroduce stuff now. And even that I did not accept, no. Don't tell me what I can or can't eat. I think I will decide. Thank you very much. So yeah, even though I'm omnivore and I eat meat and stuff, I still don't consider that I'm keto, whatever other people think.
Absolutely. And again, like I think there are like you said, like there are the personality types that find freedom in such rigid structure, but you're not one. I'm certainly not one. I'm like you. I'm like, whatever label you feel like you need to put on me, that's fine if that helps you to understand me better. But I don't walk around living within those labels. So when you see me doing something that doesn't quite fit your picture of me in your brain, it is not my responsibility to live up to it, which I
Yeah.
think, that really messes with people sometimes. But at the same time, I'm not knocking it. If you want to be vegan, vegetarian, keto, paleo, you want to put some sort of label on it and that works for you, that works for you. But the flip side of that is to respect that that doesn't work for everybody. So for you, Netta, like you don't live within those boxes. You do this whole like life after sugar, podcast and program, and I love it because it's not labeling. It's just saying like I'm not doing that anymore, and my life has become something so different now. And I was wondering if you would talk a bit about that. You kind of alluded to some of it, like you like adventures and that kind of thing. Like what has going sugar-free, grain-free, sweetener-free, what has that done for your life? What is it like now when you think back to what it used to be 7 years ago, 8 years ago?
Yeah, yes. Well, on the sort of just the food side of things, I remember when I was still eating lots of sugar, I remember getting like waking up in the morning and I would be cranky until I had breakfast, and it had to be like soon, and just don't talk to me until I've had my breakfast, which obviously was sugary or starchy, toast or cereal or whatever. And it was like I experienced this hanger, as they call it, several times a day. And I always, in my drawer at my office at my college, I always had some sort of snacks, sugary snacks, hidden away in there for emergencies. Emergencies were every day, snack emergencies. And and I sort of justified it to myself when I'd go downstairs to the cafeteria and get a muffin or something or a brownie, and I'd be like, well, I've done my daily exercise now. That was like, I'm such a good girl. And then I'd like hide, like when I had PMS, I would, and this is slightly addictive behavior, I have to say, I would sometimes drive to the shops, get some sort of like little cakey sweet things, like some caramel cakes, whatever, and open the box, eat like 3 or 4 of them in the car in the parking lot. So that, since I have learned, is not healthy behavior. But at the time, it's what I needed to do to deal with my PMS. It was that or way, way worse for everyone else around me, and so, and also, like if my husband borrowed my car or something, he'd be like, what is this brown sticky stuff in the cup holder? Well, it was like melted chocolate from something. There's always some stains or, trail of distraction behind me. And when I stopped eating sugar, flour, sweeteners, funnily enough, within a relatively, excuse me, within a relatively short time, that type of hunger went away. I mean, I since know why, because, my blood sugar levels were more stable, my insulin levels were more stable, and I didn't get this sort of desperate, I've got to eat now feeling, and I haven't had it for 7.5 years. And I didn't like my mood's stabilized. Obviously, I'm not a robot, but my mood's definitely stabilized. And now that I'm in my 50s, PMS is not such a big thing anymore. What else? Just like my whole outlook on life has changed, because I can see that you can actually have a perfectly happy life without the crutches that you think are essential to your happiness. So it's sort of proven to me that my happiness lies within me and my attitude to life. And that is a huge, empowering kind of outlook to have on life. And I'm not dependent on anything to make me happy. Because when you're dependent on other things to make you happy, which I was sure I was dependent on chocolate to make me happy, when that is taken away, what's left of your happiness? Nothing, right? But when you carry your well-being, your happiness, your, whatever, your positivity inside of yourself, then it doesn't matter what's out there. You're just fine. Thank you very much. And that I found is what I call my personal power. I've discovered it.
That's so lovely. I'm wondering how this has impacted your husband and your wife, and your daughter.
Yeah. Well, when I first started this whole no sugar thing, those 2 weeks, they were like, do we have to do this too? I'm like, no, this is my body. It's not like I'm someone else, So, but I mean, I'm like, my husband's a better cook than me, but I'm more efficient. So when it's, when we're like, go in family life, then it's me cooking, right? Weekends, it's more him. So those 2 weeks, I was making regular meals, but I was leaving off the rice or the pasta or the potatoes, whatever, from my plate, and putting it on theirs, or just like, if I couldn't be bothered to make extra stuff for them, they just wouldn't have any. And they'd be like, well, where's my pasta? I'm like, well, you make it if you want some. And that was the end of that conversation. And then I did some experiments with other types of flours at the beginning: banana flour, almond flour, goodness knows what. And then my daughter, and like making like brownies with black beans, or pudding with avocado or something. And then my daughter says to me, Mummy, can you stop, please? Please stop with the experiments. Just make me the regular stuff or not at all. So I was like, okay, because the first few weeks I like tried to find non-sugary ways to mimic desserts but it didn't work out very well. They didn't taste good, they didn't look good, and it was a waste of time, really, because that just kind of kept me in this paradigm of, you got to follow a meal with a dessert. And what really gave me freedom was stepping out of that paradigm and saying, if you're I'm going to give myself satisfying meals, and I'm going to be satisfied, not just with my meal, but with my life, rather than hankering for something else. It's like this attitude, always thinking about, oh, what else is coming, rather than I'm happy with what I have, and I have plenty. So that was that. And then, and even now, all these years after, most of our meals, I don't think they have that much starch in them for them. If we're making like spaghetti sauce, I'll just eat my sauce on a plate or in a bowl with cheese on top or something. And they can have, I can make pasta for them, but I don't I don't get pasta anymore. I just don't get it. Like, why? It doesn't taste of anything, So that we've found our balance. And because I was telling you, we like to travel. Since I've been sugar-free, we traveled several times to like all-inclusive places, and also we did a 3-month like backpacking trip to Europe. So sometimes I would taste stuff that had flour in it, not sugar, because I just don't like the taste. But like we're in Greece, in Athens, I'm gonna sample their pita bread. I'm in Greece, and whatever the little flaky things that they have. Or I'm in Portugal or Spain, I'm going to sample the stuff they have there, but one bite is enough, really. It doesn't send me on a slippery slope because I know it's just like part of the trip, you know?
So they've adjusted to the changes, but it also sounds like you haven't shown up and said, you have to eat this way because I'm eating this way. You guys have actually found your way through
Yeah.
where there's some sort of middle ground.
Oh, yeah, because look, you know, no one's telling me what to do, and therefore I'm not going to be telling my family what to do either. I mean, that make, you know, so I spend my career, my teacher career, telling kids what to do. They're not kids, they're young adults that I teach. And so I get that out of my system when I teach in my classroom. But where my family is concerned, and even all the hundreds of thousands of people that listen to my podcast and the lots of people who I help in Life After Sugar now, I've never told people what to do. I don't mother them. I don't, try and force anything on anyone because I just don't see that as being sustainable. Plus, it doesn't fit my personality. Some people do need rules and be told what to do. We were talking about keto or, for whatever other reason, fine, go see someone else, not me.
Yeah, I feel the same. I'm so non-prescriptive. Like there are days, right? Like every day I'm just still trying to figure out like what works for me in my life. I'm not about to show up and start to tell somebody else like what's going to work for their life. I have children and they're fairly young, so I have to like give some like guardrails. But if, I don't know, I live in a place where it's pretty cold, you live in a place where it's pretty cold. And if they don't want to wear their jacket or their snow pants to school, I mean, I know that the teachers get upset about that, but I'm kind of like, they're in charge of their body. If they're cold, they have the equipment, they can put it on. They know something about their body that I don't. Why can't we respect that? And I feel the same way about working
Yeah.
with people and kind of like
Yeah.
talking about like what to eat or how to eat or when to eat, any of those things. It's like, it always has to go back to what works for you.
Totally.
I love that. So I follow you on social media. And I love the other day you posted a picture of like a stack of watermelon to like look like a cake or something. And your daughter had asked for it maybe for her birthday or something. And I just thought like, how did you do that? How did you get them to be like, I'd prefer to have fruit instead of an actual cake?
Yes, I think part of it is by not imposing anything. So, I mean, I could have told her, she was 7 when I cut sugar. She just turned 15 now. I could have said to her, look, no more sugar for you, young lady. It's out of the house. That's it, which I've seen other parents say to their kids. And first of all, it doesn't suit my personality to ever say something like that anyway, whether or not I was sugar-free. But also I've seen kind of the effects of forbidding sugar, for example, and then the kids would sneak it around and eat it in secret and binge on it, which, I didn't want my daughter to do. So I never said no. And what ended up happening is that she ended up learning how to self-regulate herself. And so, she'd like the first Halloween when I was sugar-free, she was like, yes, mom's not going to steal all my candy, right? Because, I mean, let's face it, that's what I used to do. And then she was like, oh, it's all for me. But then she can't actually physically eat that much anyway in one sitting. So it was just the feeling of, oh, it's all for me. And then she'd sit there and she'd sort it into piles and stuff. And she wouldn't actually eat that much of it, And then so on for all of these holidays. And goodness knows, we realize how many holidays revolve around sugar when we're not eating it anymore. But I didn't change anything. And I rarely say no if she asks for it, sugar, because she rarely asks for it. And recently, in the last year or so, she's gotten to asking me, Mum, can you stop buying cookies? Just stop. I don't want any, but it's been 7 years. So and then she has asked me in the last 7 years, or since she was born, I've made some pretty cool cakes. I'm pretty creative, and I haven't stopped making regular cakes just because I'm sugar-free. I can make them, I just don't eat them. And the creativity sort of satisfies me enough that I'm not missing out on anything. But this year, yeah, she said, Mum, can you make this, like you take a watermelon and you put it like a sort of a mini wedding cake kind of thing, a tiered thing. And I was like, okay, hello, Pinterest, help me out here. Actually, my husband helped me because he's an engineer to actually cut it. I couldn't figure out how to turn a watermelon into a cake. And he did it like in 5 seconds. And then she asked to actually decorate some of it. She started off by decorating bits of it, and I ended up finishing it up, making it all look fancy. Yeah.
That's just so, I mean, for me with it, like I said, like I have young children. I started when my children were pretty young, but they're just now 10 and 7, right? So they were like 5 and 2 when I started. But I, like you, don't say no. And it's really interesting. I've had similar experiences because I'm not eating the candy. So like it's what the day of this interview is March 9th, 2023. We still have Halloween candy, Christmas candy, Valentine's candy, right? We're about to like have Easter, but there's just tons of it in the house. Well, not so much Halloween candy because my kids prefer Switch Witch. They keep a few pieces of candy and then they like to turn it in for arts and crafts to the Switch Witch at Halloween. But yeah, I mean, it is really interesting because they don't ask for it, or if they do ask for it, because they ask for it so infrequently, right? You're just kind of like, of course, go ahead, because they like grab their one little piece, maybe 2 little pieces, and then they're not asking for it again for days, weeks, months, whatever it might be. But I'm looking forward to the day, if they ever do, where they're just like, could you just not have those things in the house whatsoever? And part of that is not that I'm purchasing those things, that my husband does, eat those things, whatever. But again, he's not like buying a whole thing of Oreos and they're gone within a day or two. Cookies in this house last forever. My girls are both Girl Scouts, which I think is like the same as Girl Guides in Canada.
Yeah.
And they sell cookies, and right now it's cookie season, and we don't purchase, like we purchase from them to like help boost their sales because they win prizes or whatever. But we don't purchase a lot. I'm not made of money, nor do I want all of those things in our house. And we literally, in fact, I think there's still half a box of some form of Girl Scout cookies left in this house from last season. Like that's how infrequently. And so I'm just like waiting for that day. So thanks, Netta. You've given me something to look forward to, some hope. Yeah. So before you go, I've loved every minute of this conversation. I always love getting to know you more and more. I'm wondering, what is something that maybe you needed to hear 7, 8 years ago that would be helpful for somebody, maybe just starting or even just contemplating potentially starting this
Yeah.
journey?
I think for me, because I resisted it for so long. Why? Because I saw it as a loss, as something being taken away, and something that I needed, the comfort, the reward, the emotions that are behind our relationship with sugar. I wasn't aware of them, but they were central to my life. And I couldn't imagine having any kind of happy life without my favorite comfort foods. And so what I would have liked someone to have told me, that I tell others now, is not only is it a good life on the other side, what I call after sugar, but it's an even better life than you've even imagined. It's what I call a more joyful life, because you're as I was saying before, you develop this joy, this happiness, this confidence inside of yourself, this sort of self-reliance where you're not dependent on these crutches anymore. And it's not easy to find other types of soothing mechanisms, stress help, self-regulating mechanisms, all that kinds of thing. It's not easy when you're so used to just reaching out for chocolate to soothe yourself, stress relief. Not easy to find other ways to do that. Not easy to lower your dopamine levels so that you're not always looking for a high, so that you're just happy with a lower level, what I call lower highs. It's not easy because you can't imagine it. You just cannot imagine it. It just seems joyless and boring. And the opposite is actually true. And I hope that, I would have liked someone to see someone like me, in all due modesty, sort of show that it's totally possible to have a joyful, happy life without sugar. And that's why I called, what I do, life after sugar and not life without sugar, because without, English teacher here, without assumes a lack of something that's missing, something negative. Whereas after means there's a new life waiting for you.
So poetic. Like, words matter, guys. Like, words matter. And I think you just pointed out another way in which it's so important how we frame these things. Because the rebel in me, if I'd have been like, without, never again, whatever it is, right? The rebel in me is like, oh, I'll show you. But when I can hold a little less tightly, and it's like, oh, after, like, there was a period in my life when that was true, but that door has closed and now it's something else, right? It's like the rebel doesn't even have the opportunity, that part of the rebel doesn't have the opportunity to be like, I'll show you.
Right.
Yeah. So I just,
Yeah.
oh, thank you, Netta, for sharing that. It was so impactful for me to hear that. And I just appreciate you and telling your story. I don't know that I've ever heard it to that detail before. And so thank you so much for helping me to help others, hopefully, right, to feel less alone in this,
Yes.
no matter how we identify harmful user, full-blown addiction, whatever it might be. I think your story is so relatable.
Thank you. Thank you. And I'm in the process of writing a book about it. So look out for that in the next year, let's say.
Next year. Yes. Amazing. Yay. Thank
Yeah.
you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
If you like what you heard today, please remember to like, comment, share, and subscribe. Thank you for watching.